rate is between 4 to 32%. I always wonder, what kind of a business will you be involved in that you will require to get a loan as high as 32% interest rate? How do you make your money? It's instructive to note that food was a critical component exerting the greatest pressure on Nigeria's inflation. This may not be unconnected with insecurity or otherwise in most parts of the country. The increases in fuel prices, electric tariff, closure of the border, as well as increase in government spending due to COVID-19, which was increasing the debt profile, are also critical to the behavior of our inflation rates in Nigeria. Another thing to note is that inflationary pressure is more in the urban area than in the rural areas. This could be the consequence of poor transport infrastructure and logistics to convey goods from rural to urban areas, resulting in high cost of transport made worse by high fuel price. So you can easily predict how much you will spend buying food when you go to town, and you see how inflation is eating up these issues. The high electricity tariff equally contributes to rising urban inflation. So the nation must tackle the menace of insecurity. We must take the issue of state police even more seriously. People have already advocated for that. But the question I asked this morning, when will Nigeria prioritize mechanized agriculture? How could we expect to feed over 200 million citizens without a significant improvement in our farming output as a nation? You see, the inflation rate is worrisome, 18.17%, and could become uncontrollable if our policies are still in this manner. Again, you ask, how will the nation tackle this monster of inflation? Tackling inflation requires urgent government intervention to address the challenges bedeviling the supply side of the economy. Mounting inflationary pressure is a troubling phenomenon. The March headline inflation, as I said earlier, is 18.17%, and that's the highest in 4 years. More worrisome is that food inflation has accelerated to 23%. And the key drivers of mounting inflation at this level are currency depreciation, acute illiquidity in the foreign exchange market, rising transportation costs, agricultural output disruptions caused by growing insecurity, logistic challenges, and so on, hike in energy prices, climate change, and some other times they say structural bottlenecks to production. These are essentially supply-side issues, and the major issues are cost and output related. The solution, therefore, will have to be situated in the context of these causal factors. There is no doubt in the fact that rising inflationary pressures weaken the purchasing power of citizens as real incomes collapse. It accentuates pressure on production costs, negatively impacts profitability, and undermines investors' confidence. So the implication is that producers are also taking a hit, and this is more severe where a product or service is faced with high demand elasticity. These are products that consumers can readily do without. An analyst at Financial Derivatives Company Limited, led by Mr. Bismarck Rewani, said the spike in the annual general food price level was an indication that output levels were below what was recorded in March 2020, that was pre-COVID lockdown. All right, so the program is still Economic Satellite on Splash 105.5 FM, your integrity station. And so we're looking at the inflation in Nigeria today. I will take a short break right now. When I come back, I'll be taking a look at that story. Printed 60 billion naira, CBN falls Obaseki, governor maintains stand. We'll take a look at the issues. We'll look into the eye, through the eyes of experts. We'll be speaking with someone in Lagos who will be telling us a bit about what this is all about. So I will have a chat, as it were, with an economist, an accountant in the moment. That will be Yinka Ademuwagun. Stay with us. I'll be back in a moment.
If you no sabi transfer news, you fit tell your padi say na your team get correct top striker.
What are you talking about?
If you tell your padi say na your team get correct top striker, dem fit shout dey follow you argue.
No way.
If dem shout dey follow you argue, everybody for viewing centre fit shook mouth for the matter. If dem shook mouth for the matter, you fit fall your hand for the matter. If you fall your hand for the matter, you fit kick bench as you dey vex. Abeg, before you enter yawa, settle the matter with Google search. Get the latest football news, live scores, transfers, probabilities, and anything wey concern football with your Google app.
Khalif, ṣé kọ́ọ̀pù Bonvita kan ṣoṣo tó kù nìyẹn ni? Bẹ́ẹ̀ni. Ó yá gbà, ó lè mú. Ó tì ó, ìwọ mú. Rárá, ní kò gbà. Ìwọ mú sí.
Ẹ̀yin méjèèjì lẹ máa rí mu nítorí wọ́n ti pò èyí tó máa tó gbogbo ilé. Tá a bá túbọ̀ fìfẹ́ hàn síra wa, bẹ́ẹ̀ la ṣe ń tan ẹ̀mí ìṣọ̀kan tó wà nínú oṣù Ramadan. Pẹ̀lú àfikún ìdámẹ́wàá nínú ìdí Cadbury Bonvita ọlọ́gọ́rùn-ún 5 gíráàmù kí ìṣọ̀kan náà túbọ̀ ń pọ̀ sí ni. Ramadan Kareem.
Napatito, I be first class truck driver.
Yes, it's Panadol Extra Caplets. Panadol Extra is now also available in a smaller pack of 4 caplets at only 50 naira. Same Panadol Extra Caplets that relieves headache, backache, muscle ache, menstrual pain, and toothache. If it's not Panadol, it's not the same thing as Panadol. If symptoms persist after 2 days, consult a doctor. Panadol Extra contains paracetamol and caffeine, not recommended in pregnancy and children under 12.
As the best man, I'd like to give a toast. But first, I have a few things to say. The money they are spraying the couple is reducing. It seems some people have rubbed glue under their shoes to pack it.
Clearly, he's been watching Comedy Nights or maybe My Siblings and I on Africa Magic Urban, DSTV channel 153. Now, you too can get inspired by our local entertainment. Get a HD decoder, dish, plus 1 month DSTV compact subscription for only 18,600 naira. Because great stories start on DSTV.
Charles!
Yes, mommy.
Go and bring 2 sachets of hypo bleach for me.
Why 2?
Because I'm using 1 to soak the whites and using 1 to kill all the germs.
But I can't see any germs here.
They are so tiny you can't see them, but they are there. And that is why I trust only hypo bleach to kill them all.
Make your white fabrics whiter and your household free of illness causing germs and viruses with the disinfecting power of hypo bleach.
Àkókò ìjà tó pa bámbárì jù tá a ti retí ń lọ kó sókàn báyìí o kì í sí ibú yẹ̀rì láàrin jù bá náà lọ. Ó mà ṣe o ẹ̀wù bẹ́ẹ̀ ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ ń kú bí ojú bí ẹ̀ṣẹ́ àgbáwọlẹ̀ lọ́tún lọ́sí. Ó dilẹ̀ gbága yìí ó ṣubú yàkàtà ó fìdí rẹmi ìjà parí o kò sógun mọ́ kò sọ́tẹ̀ mọ́ àlùbámí ni Bosca tún borí lẹ́ẹ̀kan sí.
Gba ìtura kíá kúrò lọ́wọ́ ẹ̀fọ́rí ìrora àti òtútù pẹ̀lú Bosca. Bosca ń gba ẹ̀fọ́rí ìrora àti òtútù lágbàwọlẹ̀ ní kíákíá. Bí àyípadà kò bá sí lẹ́yìn ọjọ́ mẹ́ta lọ rí dókítà.
Uncle Dentist, wetin be cavities and how Colgate take dey protect my teeth from cavities? Shey dey use Kung Fu?
No dear, na hole for teeth dey cause most tooth pains wey be cavity. But if you use Colgate Maximum Cavity Protection take brush every day, the confirmed formula go help keep natural calcium inside our teeth wey go protect them from tooth decay.
Time don reach to upgrade to the world's most chosen toothpaste, Colgate, because Colgate locks calcium in.
Now, the Nigerian Dental Association, they recommend Colgate.
Ní ìlú tó kún fún oríṣiríṣi àwọn èèyàn, fìlà kóhùn lè bá igba orí mu, pàápàá jùlọ tá a bá ń sọ̀rọ̀ ohun sísùn. Ìdí èyí tá a fi dìídì ṣe mú kàyé fún ọ, ìwọ ìyá, bàbá, ọmọdé, àgbàlagbà. Báyìí, wàá mú ká tìrẹ rí lónìí, kó o sì jí pẹ̀lú ara líle láti lè ṣiṣẹ́ òòjọ́ rẹ. Kàn sí muka.com.
Muka, ó mú ìrọ̀rùn sínú ayé wa.
If you don't know the transfer news, you might tell your friends your team has the top striker.
What are you talking about?
If you tell your friends your team has the top striker, they might loudly disagree. If they loudly disagree, the whole viewing center might get involved. If the whole viewing center gets involved, you might lose the argument. If you lose the argument, you might kick the floor in frustration. Before things get out of hand, settle it with Google Search. Get the latest football news, live scores, transfers, probabilities, and so much more on your Google app.
One expert don't land with big ogbonge odds and sharp cash out method. You will like sports. This now your big opportunity to make better money on top all your bets. Where be bigger? My Naija people, abeg, make una no sleep on this one. Make you rush now. Go visit our website on oneexpert.ng. No forget to use the promo code BETNG and you go get 200% bonus on your first deposit. OneXpert, bet wey dey for everybody.
Thank you for being there with us on Splash 105.5 FM. It's your integrity station. Hello, Mr. Ademuagun. Can you hear me? Okay, well, I will be getting into calling him in a moment. Just to stay with us right here on Splash 105.5 FM, your integrity station. As I told you when we went on that break that I'll be speaking with Mr. Yinka Ademuagun. Mr. Yinka Ademuagun, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right, good morning. Just hold on for me. I will put you on air in a moment while we try to do this connection. Okay, just hold on there. Now, the point is we want to take a look at the issue of printed 60 billion naira CBN folds Obaseki and governor maintains stand. Mr. Ademuagun, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Oluwaseun, and thank you for having me on the show this morning.
Great. So without much ado, let's get on the issue. I just want us to understand, without taking a side from whether Mr. Obaseki was right or the Minister for Finance was right, what are the implications of a country printing currency and what are the economic factors to be put in consideration before you print currency? I know a bit about the volume of currency in circulation, the volume of cash in circulation. Just make it clear for an average Nigerian.
So yes, although both the government and the CBN have denied any of such action of printing currency, but if that were to be true, as insinuated by the governor of Edo State, that basically would fuel what you call fiscal indiscipline. That is, because you're printing money without any productive activity going on, that means it's a giveaway. It's a free lunch that you can rely on, and that would fuel fiscal indiscipline in the sense that the governors of the states, they can relax since they know the CBN have their back. They don't need to do anything much. They don't need to try to grow their internal revenue in order to boost their cash flow. They would rather relax and rely on the CBN to continue to finance their activities. So basically, printing money without any productive activity being backed up by that action of printing money would fuel fiscal indiscipline within the nation. Basically, that's one major perspective.
Okay. Well, now let's get to the issues one after the other. I know that when you have a large chunk of money pursuing scarce goods, then you have inflation.
Correct. So yes. So basically, that has to do with supply of money in circulation. So ordinarily, I think for the base or the secondary school education, basically you are taught inflation. The definition of inflation means too much money chasing fewer goods. And at the moment, I think yesterday the inflation report for Nigeria was released, and it was around 18% level. Food inflation was as high as 20% level. Yeah, so those are concerning numbers already. So having printing money without any productive activity, basically means what you are fueling inflation. You'll be fueling inflation in the sense that there will be too much money without much productivity. So that would probably add more pressure to the already high inflation numbers that we're seeing. So that's perspective 2 to this. Perspective 1 is the fiscal indiscipline that it's likely going to promote. Perspective 2 is the fact that it will further spur inflation. At a time like this, you want to rein in on inflation. You want to control the level of inflation in the system, not to fuel it further. Yes.
Now, is it possible that we peak on hyperinflation if we continue with this trend?
So yes, we've seen it happen in so many countries, and these actions like these are what fuel them. We've seen it happen in Zimbabwe. A couple of other African countries have witnessed hyperinflation in recent times, Zimbabwe notably. And one major reason that happened is something similar to this that is going around. It was a situation where the monetary authority was funding the activities of the government without much productivity being backed by that printing of money. So that's a situation where you see money would lose its value. You would have to buy a bread that you're buying for 100 naira today. You would have to spend like 2,000 naira to buy it. So those are times, terrible times that you don't want to get in. Just to put it, I do not think we're going to get to that level. To be honest, I believe the CBN will try to rein in on some of this inflation, and we started to see some actions from the CBN majorly in recent times. Interest rates, we've seen some interest rate reversal in recent times. Last year, interest rate was as low as at low single digits. Now we're seeing interest rates as high as 14%. So that basically speaks to the fact that yes, they are trying to rein in on inflation using monetary tools. But to rein in on inflation, you need beyond monetary tools. There's also the fiscal contribution to rein in on inflation. That is to control inflation. You need some support from the government in form of security, beefing up security, because one of the major reasons why food inflation has risen that high is because of the security challenges you are seeing in the food producing states, which have affected their productivity. So if you can also try and improve security, which is the major reason for some of this supply chain bottleneck, you'll be able to control some of this food inflation that we're seeing at the moment. Yeah.
Now, I want to weigh in on inflation a little bit, and I want you to speak to these issues. We have issues around production, manufacturing, FX, volatility, and high cost of transportation. How can we manage these, subsectors? Because if we don't manage them, there would not be a decline in the level of inflation and rising cost of goods and services.
Correct. So yes, it's interesting times within the country. We're just coming out of recession. We just came out of recession recently, anyway, and inflation is rising at a very rapid pace, and is likely going to pick up further. If you remember, one of the, like I already mentioned, the fact of food inflation being, policies around lockdown, the shutdown of land border also affected food inflation last year. And although they've reversed that policy, the major one that is driving it right now is the insecurity challenges that we're facing. And that is the elephant in the room. If we can fix that, we can tighten securities, because the northern states are major producers of food. So, that's if farmers can't go to their farmland because of the security challenge, so that has affected supply heavily. And the other part is the core inflation, which has to do with every other thing except for food. That is also rising. Majorly, you've highlighted some of those factors: transportation costs, higher transportation costs, higher energy costs. Recently, the tariff was adjusted upward, electricity tariff was adjusted upward, and you're seeing the impact of that on inflation. Also, PMS prices, that's the petrol prices, were reversed upward recently, although they altered a further increase in the price for another 6 months. If that comes online, say in under 6 months, that will probably add more pressure to inflation. So everywhere you look, basically, it seems like there's pressure everywhere. And you also mentioned the last the notable one, which is FX volatility. So to fix some of these things, now that you know the problem, it's just to tackle those problems. For food, tackle insecurity, beef, also support the farmers with some seedlings and subsidize some of their productive activity. That would help to boost food supply within the nation, open up the borders a bit more for legal importation of some necessities, rather than this protectionist policy that we're implementing, because the nation is not food sufficient at the moment. So you cannot block out imports totally, because you need those imports to support your local production, because your local production cannot afford to feed the whole nation at the moment. So you need to open up your economy for those imports to come in. So those are the kind of policies you want to put in. Although there are some necessary evils, one of them is the fact that you need the electricity tariff adjustment is needed. Also, the PMS price adjustment is needed, and basically for two reasons. For the electricity tariff, one of the major reasons why our power sector has not really improved in terms of the power supply that we're having is because we are not charging cost-reflective tariff, and that has discouraged new investments within that space. But if you allow for a cost-reflective tariff, you will probably see new investment in that space, which will lead to more supply of power within the nation. And the same thing applies for the downstream petroleum sector, where we're talking about petrol prices. Although petrol prices, subsidizing petrol prices have not been so beneficial for the nation, if you look at it, it has been a source of siphoning money from the government. You've seen cases of people buying petrol at a subsidized level here in Nigeria and selling it to neighboring countries at higher prices. So that do not add any value to Nigerians. It only adds value to a few people's pockets. So that is why it is important to also try and take off those subsidies and rechannel those subsidies to more productive activities. Right. So those are the necessary policies that I think we need at this time.
Well, thank you for those explanations. But I will just, maybe just in one sentence or two, you've made reference to having cost-reflective tariff and also making the pricing of our PMS competitive, within the sub-region. But there is another area to it, maybe sentimental. People still believe that supply of energy should be a social service, to the people. How are we going to change our mindset from that level to a more economic, viable sense that you are pushing us into?
Yes, to be honest, there's a part of education, right? If you do a quick survey, and that's the reality, to be honest, when you ask people on the streets and you tell them, would you be willing to have to pay more for power and have 24-hour power supply? Ordinarily, people will tell you yes. But when you actually implement it, and people do not see the power supply, immediately. People expect that power supply to come online immediately. And they are not seeing that, it leads to grumbling and, people are angry. But because if you increase my tariff, for example, to buy fuel, I probably will be better off because I can afford, probably my fuel cannot power my most of my machinery, but the normal power supply will be able to power most of my machinery easily. So I'll probably be better if I have 24-hour power supply. So on the part of the government, it's an handshake, right? The public, most people are willing to take the adjustment, but the problem is we're not seeing the immediate impact of those increase in terms of better power supply. So that is where the government needs to basically make the most, they need to make the most adjustments in such that if they are taking this price increase, let the public see the impact as soon as possible. Don't you can't continue to promise that you will get the power up and running in under 1 year after you've increased tariff about a year ago. So you need to see immediate results to be able to win the masses over. That's basically my thought process on this.
All right. So before I let you go, because we have just a few minutes to go, Bismarck Rewani yesterday on national television said the economy is performing suboptimally. Would you agree?
Yes, suboptimally, yes, and that has been the story since 2016. With the economy, 2016 we entered into a recession. We came out of recession in 2017. But we've always been performing at suboptimal level. And what does that mean, basically? If you look at output growth, that is the total GDP growth within the nation, in the last, between 2016 and now, it has averaged around 2%, 2.5%. We've not even been able to touch that 2.5%, but population growth is around 2.6, 2.7%. That is, the population is growing at a faster pace than the economy. So that is suboptimal. That means you are not producing as much as your population is growing. So basically, that's a definition of suboptimal economic growth. To be honest.
So how can we push the economy to perform from that level and rally it up a little bit?
Yes, to push the economy, basically you need business-friendly policies. In recent times, we've seen some policies that are not business-friendly. You've seen some policy backflip. The government says something today, then another 1 month time they say another. You see ban of activities here and there. All of these are not policies that would encourage new investment into the economy. Because basically, what are we saying? We're saying the economy is growing at a slow pace, and that means investment is slow within the country. And you need to implement policies that will encourage new investment into the country. And those are policies that are business-friendly, policies like policies that might not even involve money. It might things that has to do with ease of doing business, basically. Ability to register my company easily within hours, and I get it. I don't have to bribe anybody. Ability to be able to get my tax receipt, my tax filing done easily. Ability to be able to get good road, power supply. All of those things are necessary to encourage investments within the nation. To be honest, Nigeria have the potential. We have the population, and with AfCFTA, that's the African Continental Free Trade Agreement that is being implemented. You are likely going to see people or most companies going to neighboring economies to set up their operation. Neighboring economies that have better power supply, that have good road, they will rather go there and ship those items down to Nigeria because that will be much more cost efficient for them. And for us to be more competitive, we need to get things like our train network, our rail transportation. We need to get it up and running to be at least to be able to move items from the port down to the manufacturing plant. This is very necessary. That would help to lessen pressure on the road network, because the pressure from trucks that are traveling from the port to the manufacturing plant are adding to this to the decaying nature of our road network at the moment. Those are policies that we can do without necessarily spending so much. Those are things that have to do with the body language of the federal government, the body language of the monetary authorities. So those are things that we need to get right to be able to boost new investment and to be able to move to optimal level of growth again.
Thank you. And lastly, just a comment on these. Twitter just moved to Ghana. ShopRite is moving out of its franchise from Nigeria.
Correct.
What does that say about our economy?
Again, that says a lot already. Like, you are just affirming what I just finished saying, right?
Yes.
That investment is slowing within the nation. One of the major investment space, or the booming investment space at the moment, is the fintech. And there are pressures already that are already surfacing there from from the likes of the CBN that is not promoting growth within that segment already. So those are policies that you need to, most of our policies are archaic and they are old. They need updating. And let me just speak specifically to the Twitter and the ShopRite exit. Basically, currency volatility is one concern. For example, for Twitter, for example, would need good internet. Nigeria do not have one of the best internet in Africa. The likes of Kenya, Rwanda, Ghana have the better internet facilities. So we do not expect a Twitter to come to Nigeria where probably they will need to do a meeting and the network just goes off in between. Those are issues that need fixing. Also, power supply is important for a Twitter. It needs to be up and running. They don't need to be fueling their generating sets every now and then in Ghana. So where power supply is a bit better than here in Nigeria. So those are the things that needs to change for us to be able to attract investment, the kind of investment that this nation needs to take itself out of this suboptimal level of growth.
All right, so just to add to what you just said, I remember that recently Google AI, Microsoft, Huawei, these are tech giants who are operating in other West African countries and not Nigeria.
Correct. Because the facilities here in Nigeria would not encourage their operation here in Nigeria. Because basically, there are so many concerns. One, there's currency concern. Two, there's a concern around power. How do I power myself? There's concern around security. There's even the concern around the SIM registration. Imagine Twitter coming to Nigeria. How would they get their staff to have a phone line within the country when you buy SIM registration? Although yesterday
it was lifted.
It was lifted yesterday. But imagine those kind of policies that are discouraging investment within the nation. Those are the kind of policies that would not allow investment to thrive within the nation. Those are the kind of policies that we need to change ASAP. Yes.
All right. I must thank you, Yinka Ademuwagu, for speaking with us on this program this morning.
Thank you,
I hope we have more time to do these more often than just now.
Yeah.
I hope you'll be available for us.
It's been my pleasure.
Thank you.
It's been my pleasure.
Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Have a wonderful day. That was Yinka. Yinka has a BSc in Management and Accounting from the Awolowo University as a chartered accountant and is currently a CFA Level 2 candidate that is spoke glowingly about Nigerian economy. Let me give you what Bismarck Rewani said about this issue of printing of currency a bit, and then I sign off for today.
What the governor is saying and what the minister is saying is like trying to differentiate between 6 and half a dozen. Printing money, the responsibility of printing money and administering the legal tender of a country is that of the federal government and the Central Bank of Nigeria under the Central Bank Act. So the truth is that first and foremost, let us look at what is total money supply in Nigeria. Today, total money supply in Nigeria is about 38.74 trillion naira, of which cash in circulation, cash, is less than 7% and it's 2.78 trillion. That is what is printed. Then there's what we call narrow money, which is M1, savings accounts and some other things. It comes to 16.55 trillion. Then we have what they call broad money or wider definition of money, which is M2. It takes it to 38.23 trillion. And total, which is M3, which includes fractional reserves and credit, extra pseudo money, it comes to 38.74. So the reality is that if you take total money supply in Nigeria of 38.74 and cash in circulation is less than 10% of that, you will see that it is not true or it is not factually correct that people go to Abuja and bullion bonds are printed and people start coming out. However, when you consider how the budget is funded, and if the budget is funded in such a way that it is not backed by depositors or investor commitments, then the investment banker is right to say that you have engaged in what we call ways and means advances. Ways and means advances, which is not supported by investment by depositors, is an elegant way of saying that money is being printed, right? So what is the position of Nigeria's debt, the profile of Nigeria's debt? And before we go to that, let us look at what has happened in the last 12 months. At this time last year, the price of oil dropped to as low as $26 a barrel. Today, we are at about $64 a barrel. Therefore, Nigeria's revenue is much higher today than what it was a year ago. In fact, 200% more. In other words, the revenue profile of Nigeria today is much stronger. But what is important is to understand that if the debt is not managed properly, if the fiscal deficit is not managed efficiently and prudently, what the fear that is being expressed by the governor of Edo State will come to be. Therefore, and the federal government of Nigeria, from what I understand, has accepted. So about 2 months ago, the debt management office said, we are going to securitize the federal government overdraft at the central bank and issue notes to the tune of about 10 trillion naira. If that is done and the interest rates begin to increase and get closer to the rate of inflation, then you get what we call fiscal neutrality and the economy will be in equilibrium. But the way it is today, if nothing is done and you have interest rates at 2-3% for 90 days and inflation at 18%, you will have a diminishing marginal propensity to save, and that is a recipe for financial chaos.
Yeah, so what Bismarck said there is consistent with what Ademuwagun also said, that we need to avoid fiscal rascality. I will be closing on the issue of Twitter Africa presence. I will say this morning, that government and all the policymakers in Nigeria will need to further initiate various policies and incentives that will attract foreign direct investment inflows into the country. Because as it is right now, FDI is becoming the bride of the African continent. And the government needs to improve on policies and laws to promote private sector involvement in our economic growth, so that SMEs, startups, financial technology, fintech, software and telecom companies will find Nigeria attractive. And that's it on Economic Satellite for today. Thank you for listening to us, and many thanks to you for being there. Desmond has been my colleague on the program today. My name is Seun Akinola. Good morning. Have a wonderful weekend.
We inform, that's why we are loved. More music, we are the best. The Integrity Station. Splash.
105.5.
We've got the city on lockdown.
Got my own city that I hold down.
We are Splash 105.5.